What is up, everyone? I am Fernando. I am your host of Sports Time HQ. Joined with me today is my great co-host, Keith. Keith, how are you doing? It is the fantasy playoffs starting this week. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm feeling good about the playoffs. I've actually made playoffs, and I think in every league besides one, so I am happy. I got the first couple of spots in some of them, so I got the all important bye week. So just fingers crossed, no injuries. But yeah, I'm excited.
I'm in the Scott Fishbowl playoffs still. I've managed to keep going in that playoffs.
That's good. I was meaning to ask you how you're doing, Scotty Fish, but that's good. It's a big win. You made it on the first year.
Yeah, I got I think we have like 2 or 3 more weeks, but I think this week they cut down from 1,000 advanced to like 500 or 750.
Oh, nice.
So it's gonna be interesting, especially because injuries have been a big problem this past week.
Oh, they have big time. But yeah, well, good luck in the Scotty Fish. I hope you go all the way.
Yeah, and I hope you go all the way in a lot of your leagues. I know you're in our ESPN league, which I thought that there would be 6 teams that make it, not realizing only 4 make it.
Yeah, I think you were number 5. I snuck in at 4. So yeah, I'm trying to. That's the one I won last year, so I'm out to defend my crown on that one. And then we've got a couple of other leagues that we're in. I don't know if you made it in the Madden or the Twitter league, but yeah.
I think I made it in one of them.
Okay, yeah. One of my teams has definitely gone down after Kyler Murray injury last night. So yeah, I'm not too happy about that. So it's going to mean some changes for my team.
Of course, we got V Doinks, my boy Aaron in the building as well. How you doing, Aaron? Go follow V Doinks all over YouTube. But it's time for our injuries, news, all those good stuffs. Actually, before we go on to that, what in the world's wrong with your Seattle Seahawks? Why did you guys lose to Carolina?
Oh, that was terrible. I was thinking that might be like the one win we might get, for the rest of the season, because we got, the 49ers, we got the Chiefs coming up, we got the Jets, we got to play the Rams again. I mean, I don't know whether we're going to win another game this
it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard.
It's going to be tough. I think, if we don't win another game, it's going to end up looking like a bad season. But I think I'll take it as a win because I wasn't expecting them to win many games in the first place. I think there's been a lot of good surprises on that Seahawks team. Geno being one, and then like the young guys, Woolen and Kobe Bryant and stuff that we got in the draft this year have been good. So we'll see what happens. You never know. We might surprise the 49ers and beat them on Thursday.
And of course, my Patriots ended up beating Arizona, which is a little shaky in my opinion. I think if Kyler stayed the whole game, I really think we probably would have lost because the Patriots, in my opinion, the offense just does not look good. And then the injuries have killed the whole night.
Yeah, the whole first quarter, everybody was just like falling off the field. It was like, there goes Connor. He came back on. I know Stevenson did the same thing. And then you had Kyler obviously going. Devontae Parker went out with concussion. It was just, they were all just, going down left, right, and center. It was crazy.
No, yeah, it was insane to see. But, of course, now with the win for the Patriots and a loss to Seattle as well, looking at the playoff standings right now, the Patriots are in at the 7th seed, and the Seahawks are on the bubble at number 8. So they're looking from the outside, trying to get in.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. I think it's a bonus being on that wild card spot. So, like I just spoke about, it's a tough run in for the Seahawks. So I'm not expecting them to jump back in there. But you never know; they might surprise me.
One of the key games this week that I mentioned was Mr. Irrelevant facing the GOAT, and Brock Purdy. He looked very purdy against Tom Brady, and he ended up getting a win. What did you think of that game?
The 49ers just blew them away. I thought, and it was a really, really bad game from Tom Brady. If you ever wanted to see or kind of say maybe Tom Brady should retire, it's after watching this game because he did not look good. He had made lots of bad throws. I think he was having a bit of a fight with Mike Evans at one stage because Mike Evans was wide open a few times and he just completely missed them. Maybe they'll just put that in as a really bad Tom Brady game. The Bucs haven't been good this season, but it's not really been all his fault. It's been a lot of poor defensive and stuff like that, and a lot of injuries on that team. It's not really been down to Brady, but this game definitely, Brady didn't help the team. So they just move on, see what happens. I think they got the Bengals next, the Bucs. So it's another tough game for them, but they'd be looking to bounce back.
And of course, I posted a poll on Twitter earlier this week after the win, and it was to Kyle Brandt, Adam Rank, and of course, Good Morning Football. And it's got about just under 100 votes so far, and it's still got about a day to go on voting. But I said the big question is, the 49ers make it to the Super Bowl. Win or lose, Brock Purdy's the starter there. What happens with the 49ers? Who's their starting quarterback in 2023? And Keith, I'll go with your opinion first, and then I'll ask you what you think the voters picked.
Well, I know I actually voted on this, and I voted Trey Lance because I'm a Trey Lance guy. But
Yeah.
I would have thought differently if Jimmy G had kind of stayed the course, and didn't get injured. To say like, I don't know, I'm not too sure about Trey Lance now, especially if Jimmy got them to the Super Bowl. Now I think with his injury, I think the door's wide open there again. Who knows? It could be Brock Purdy if he manages to do it. They've got no real reason to drop him. But I think then you'd have to say it's Purdy, then Trey Lance too, and then they probably do get rid of Jimmy G once he's fit and healthy. But I just think the door is wide open there for Trey Lance to get back in next season. But it all depends, what Brock Purdy does. Through 2 games, I mean, it's been great. But then again, that defense is helping a lot as well. It's a lot going there. We'll see what happens with Debo going down. That's going to hurt, Purdy as well. But he did well for the remainder of the game when I'm out. I'm sure he had that great throw to Brandon Ayuk too. So, Lance is my pick there. But I think the voters would say Lance too. That's my guess.
So 16% said Jimmy Garoppolo, which I expected him to be the least. I mean, if he didn't get injured, he'd probably be the most.
He would,
but with him injured, I think he's out the door. And it's between Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and 36% of the voters said Trey Lance, which means that 48% said Brock Purdy would be the starting quarterback in 2023.
I mean, it's interesting. It's not out of the equation. I mean, if he does take them to the Super Bowl, like you said, win or lose, he's still it's a case that he has to start next year, regardless of Trey Lance or Jimmy G. In my opinion.
I don't know. I think you have all the weapons there, and you're helping Brock Purdy. I would love to see Mr. Irrelevant start the season as a starter, because he from now on he's breaking a bunch of records. That's all he's going to be doing.
So do I, and I love the story too. You know what I mean? It's like, sorry to jump in there. I mean, it's more like the Tom Brady thing again. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Pick 199, all that stuff, then win 6 Super Bowls. I mean, if he's Mr. Irrelevant and then wins the Super Bowl, it's like crazy.
And if he goes on to say win the same amount of Super Bowls as Tom Brady, who realistically is the best quarterback?
Oh, I know. That's way down the line. But
way down the line, yeah. The next 20, we'll talk about it in 20 years.
Exactly. I'm sure Mahomes, Allen, all will have a say. Burrow, these guys will all have a say in what happens. They're probably going to win Super Bowls in the next 20 years.
It's also crazy to think that if Brock Purdy does go to the Super Bowl and make it to the Super Bowl, that means he would have made it to the Super Bowl and as well as won the Super Bowl before Josh Allen did.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think.
He won't be happy. I know it is crazy. I mean, I'm sure it'd be crazy to think he was third on the depth chart at the start of the year, and then all of a sudden he's bringing his team to the Super Bowl. Come February, I don't think he would have thought that at the start of the season either. So, yeah, it's probably been a bit of a whirlwind for Brock Purdy, but all he can do is keep it up and keep getting the wins and see where it takes him.
Yeah, of course. And of course, going into the playoff picture as well, you got the Chicago Bears, you got the Denver Broncos, and the Houston Texans, who have been eliminated from the playoffs. But for this week, there's a few teams that can be eliminated. New Orleans, the Saints can get eliminated. The Cardinals can get eliminated. The Rams could get eliminated. The Colts could get eliminated with a Tennessee win and an Indy loss. And I think realistically, if you look at the picture, if Indy wins out and Tennessee loses out with some help with Jacksonville and everything, Indy can still have a chance to make playoffs.
Okay, so all the different permutations going on there.
Yep. So a lot of different things for Indy, but most likely Jeff Saturday and their season most likely are over.
It's ended, yeah. If not this week, they'll probably end the next week.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And a lot of heartbreaks for fantasy playoff week because we have had so many injuries. I'm going to go through a bunch of injuries, and Keith, you can touch on maybe the most that you thought was probably the most severe for playoffs anyways.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd, he had a dislocated finger. They are ruling that he's day-to-day currently. T. Higgins as well, hamstring injury, he's day-to-day. Damian Pierce, mild high ankle sprain. He could miss 1 to 2 weeks. Kenny Pickett, concussion. You got to monitor him this week. But his status is still up in the air. They don't know if he can play or not. Same with Tyler Huntley, but we're expecting Lamar Jackson to be back this week. Deebo Samuel, left MCL sprain and a sprained left ankle. Ruling right now is between 4 to 8 weeks, but they want him back before the end of the season. Whether or not that comes in the fantasy championship or week 18, who some could have fantasy championships that week, I highly doubt he should be started or even kept on your lineups in redraft leagues, unless you have an IR spot. And last but not least, Kyler Murray, knee injury, non-contact. We know how severe non-contact knee injuries can be. Right now, it's still not in doubt that he is out for the season, but realistically, this should end his 2020 campaign.
Yeah, it's gone. He's gone for the remainder of the season. It's an ACL. I mean, I know there's been no great confirmation yet, but I wouldn't expect him back. Definitely not for playoffs, anyways. So, I think you're gonna have to pivot there in your leagues with Kyler. I think the big one is Deebo, though. Deebo, explosive player, the way they're using him in the backfield, and I suppose that's probably the biggest thing now is why they were throwing him straight down the middle, and then something like this happens and kind of not sticking to him as a receiver. But yeah, he's going to kill a lot of playoff teams and trying to get to the finals. T. Higgins is another interesting one because this was very annoying because I have a lot of T. Higgins shares. It looked like he tweaked his hamstring in the warm-ups, but they had him off the injury report and they didn't say anything, and then all of a sudden he just wasn't out there on Sunday. So a lot of people looking around for T. Higgins didn't realize that he actually tweaked his hamstring and wasn't out there, and all could have made late pivots. So that was very frustrating. Tyler Boyd one I wouldn't be too worried about once he can catch the ball. I mean, like dislocated finger, you knock it back in. I mean, if it's not too bad, and you
start catching with one hand.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Hopkins does it all the time, and
Yeah.
So it's not like you need two. But I think Tyler Boyd will be okay. T. Higgins is one to definitely monitor this week to see how bad, like hamstrings, you don't want to mess with them. So if they think it's going to be too bad, he's probably going to be out for a couple of weeks, so he'll be a big loss in the playoffs. Pierce, the high ankle sprain. I think this one is probably going to kill a lot of. It depends how deep most teams are running backs, but I mean, a lot of teams do not have a lot of depth in running back from what I see in definitely 12-team leagues, anyways. So if you have Dameon Pierce on your roster and you are in the playoffs, this one could hurt you big time.
Yeah, and of course, we do want to mention Ramondre Stevenson, who did end up coming into back into the game, but then had to exit for the rest of the game with an ankle injury, and that's still unknown whether or not he's going to be able to play for next week.
Damien, I don't know, you know more than I do about Patriots' Harris. Do they think he's going to be back? I think there was question marks about whether he's going to return, so it could be Pierre Strong might be the guy there.
They're Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris.
Yeah, Pierre Strong did well actually last night, though. He somewhere around the 14 to 16 point mark.
Yeah.
Fancy, he did pretty good. He had a nice night. A lot of it came on one big run, but still, he'd be the next man up, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think Damian Harris, they're questioning him for this week. They don't know if he can suit up, but if he is ready to suit up, then Damian has to be the starter.
Yeah, he'll be the focal point there of that committee.
We got a question from Blur Pay. ETN, Zonovan Knight, or Mike Evans at flex this week?
Yeah.
I actually want to go with Zonovan Knight, to be honest. I really like Zonovan Knight. I think he's been looking really good the last couple of weeks. Mike Evans, let's be real, he's like a hit or miss. I mean,
he's missing more than he's hitting because I have Mike Evans in a few leagues and it's killing me.
Exactly. And you've seen so many times this season where Mike Evans wide open for a 69-yard touchdown, 70-yard touchdown, drops it. Or even last week, had a good possible chance of getting some good fantasy points, and it wasn't able to finish. ETN busted last week. I don't know how well it's going to work because Trevor Lawrence has really looked good these past couple of weeks, and they really like the passing game right now.
Yeah, I lean with you on Zonovan Knight. The Jets take on the Lions this week, and I think that's a plus matchup for him. My next would be Etienne. Yeah, he busted last week, surprisingly, even though they put up like 36 points. But like you said, Trevor Lawrence was just gung-ho, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, these guys were just eating up all the targets. And they didn't run it a lot, even though when they were ahead. So He'd be my next, and then Evans would be my last because he's just too volatile. He could go off. I mean, but then again, he's up against the Bengals, who are pretty decent, got good corners, and are pretty solid defensively. So I'd go Knight, Etienne, and then Evans.
Yeah, and the Lions' defense to running backs, they've allowed about 16.54 points on average each week to running backs. So I like Zonovan's matchup here.
Yep.
It's crazy to think that we're choosing a rookie running back over an elite person like Mike Evans or first round pick ETN.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's how it goes, and you got to just do what you need to do to get the win.
Exactly, and especially playoffs. It's all that matters.
Yeah.
So it's time now for our bust of the week that happened. And I'll start with my guy because I mentioned him last week, and I'm mentioning him again because I said that this man was someone to monitor this week in his production. My bust of the week is Nick Chubb. He only had 8.4 points last week. And the week before that, against against Houston, he had 8 points. And I mentioned last week when he busted with 8 points to Houston, he had such a very favorable matchup against Cincinnati where last time he faced them, he scored 25.4 points. Here's the problem. It's a new quarterback. Deshaun Watson's under center. There's no Jacoby Brissett checking down or giving it to the run game. You have a quarterback that you're paying $200-something million for, and you're going to use him. You're going to obviously use him. He has another favorable matchup against Baltimore this week where he had 18.1 points earlier this season. I don't know if he's going to get to 18.1 because of this whole difference in quarterbacks. I mean, if you say that Jacoby Brissett's starting next week for Cleveland, I'm willing to start Nick Chubb. If you're saying Watson's starting next week, I think I'd rather choose someone else, maybe even a Zonovan Knight over Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I mean, this whole Cleveland team looks like their season's just kind of fizzling out to nothing right now. I mean, the defense is solid enough, but it's still, with the way the offense is playing, and I get that the whole Deshaun Watson rusty thing, but the defense can hold up for that long. They eventually have to give way. The running game has stopped the last couple of weeks, and I think you're right. I think it's the whole switch of quarterbacks and not leaning on it as much. They're also talking about that they want more design runs for Watson too, so that's going to also kill the upside on Chubb and Hunt. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, definitely a bust this week, and it's not looking promising going forward for these guys or the Cleveland offense really as a whole. Maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones, Murray Cooper, maybe them guys in the flex, but when you're talking about the running backs, it's not looking great for them in the playoff run.
No, and I mean, are you willing to start Nick Chubb this week? Would you be willing to start him?
If I definitely have a pivot option, I would. I mean, like, you're probably gonna fall in the category where you have no choice but to play him. But if you have like a Zonovan Knight, like you were saying, someone like along them lines, or even if you got word that Harris isn't coming back, Stevenson's out, Pierre Strong is there, I think I'd rather take a chance on Pierre Strong in a matchup against the Raiders where it's a good matchup. It's favorable for running backs, that way. I think that's where, like I said, it's not about the names at this stage of the season. It's about getting the points on the board and getting the win.
Yeah, and the Raiders, they've allowed 19 points to running backs this season.
Exactly. So it's a plus matchup for whoever starts at the running back position or like leads that committee anyways, because it's going to be a 1-2 punch or something like that for the Patriots.
Exactly. So, of course, who is your bust of the week? I already mentioned Nick Chubb. Who's your guy? Are we staying in the AFC?
We already just mentioned him a few moments ago. It's Travis Etienne. I mean, they put up 36 points, and this guy still only had 3.2 fantasy points. He had 17 attempts. 17 attempts just for 32 yards, nothing in the air. No touchdowns. I mean, he just was not involved this week at all. Trevor Lawrence favored the throw-in, and that's what they did. They peppered Ingram. They peppered Zay Jones. So it turned out that Travis Etienne was just a big bust this week. Hopefully, it's just a 1 week and move off because he has been pretty solid this season.
Yeah, no, I've actually liked him this season. I didn't like that he got drafted there because I still wanted James Robinson to succeed. But now that he's gone, I'm all about Etienne. But
yeah,
it was definitely something that you didn't expect Etienne to just bust, especially if you really needed to win this week to make it. He really hurt your lineup.
Yeah, and just a quick word there where we're talking about when you mentioned James Robinson there. How weird is he's just like disappeared off the face of the
earth. He's gone
for the Jets. I mean, this looked like a great trade to replace Brees Hall for the rest of the season, and all of a sudden they had the guy they wanted in the roster, being Zonovan Knight, and they did not need to trade for James Robinson. It's a really strange one. I expect him to be on the move again for next season.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely teams that could use Robinson.
Not only that, Brees Hall went down. They had Michael Carter, who was a solid running back before Brees Hall came in, and then Michael Carter got hurt, and now you still don't turn to James Robinson. You turn to the rookie Zonovan Knight. So what in the world?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Robinson's just not getting it in the playbook, or the running style just not suited their Jets. But whatever, it doesn't matter. The Jets have figured it out. Zonovan Knight works with Carter getting the the passing work and stuff like that. And you've also got Ty Johnson mixed in as well. So yeah, they don't really need Robinson. It was just kind of a strange, why the hell did they trade for him?
Yeah, exactly. So of course, Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, our two busts of the week. Let's go to our biggest surprises of the week, and I'll start with you. Let's go to McDonald's, get a McChicken, and who is your guy?
Don't do that to me. I'm starving. I want food.
It's the time of the day. I haven't even had lunch either yet.
Bang on lunchtime. But it's Jerick McKinnon. I mean, this guy didn't do a whole lot on the ground. He only had 6 attempts, 22 yards, but it was all in the air. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Big surprise. This guy's only put up, double digits fantasy points 3 times before this season, week 9, 10, week 13. And then again, they weren't even ones to shout about. It was 10 points, over 11 points, and 14 points. And then this week he has over 32 points. It was crazy. I mean, if you had to put him in because of the bye weeks, I mean, he probably helped you win this week or get into the playoffs. So yeah, I think he was my big surprise this week. Not expecting it, especially when Pacheco was there and he's kind of leading the way and he looks pretty good. But yeah, Jerick McKinnon had a great week this week. As I like to say, and I've said a lot previously, I wouldn't expect this going forward, but he may be a solid flex play going forward.
He definitely made you McHappy though.
He did make Mac happy. Yeah, leave the Mac out, man.
He did have double digits last 2 weeks, and you mentioned Pacheco, but it seems like he's been into the passing game, especially last week with those 9 targets. I want to see what happens with Houston this week because he goes on to face Houston, Seattle, and then Denver. And I'm intrigued on these matchups because, running backs can have a favorable matchup, especially against Houston. I mean, Houston allows a lot of points to running backs. They're actually the most allowed to running backs with 24 points. So okay. I think if Pacheco's not there, I think McKinnon's a start. I'd start him over Chubb.
I think Pacheco. Yeah, it's a good shout there. But I think Pacheco and McKinnon could have a good week this week. We've seen Tony Pollard and Zeke get in the end zone and do well. So yeah, definitely Pacheco. McKinnon can definitely get in the end zone this week. But this whole getting 32 points is not something he's going to do. Week in, week out. He's not even going to get you, high teens week in, week out. So you might have another good week this week, but I don't know whether he's going to be a league winner.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a league winner either, but it'll be interesting to see if you really need a running back. Maybe he could be a good one,
yep.
Sneaky one, flex play.
Yep.
So, Jerick McKinnon, of course, your surprise of the week. I got to go with my surprise of the week, and maybe everyone's surprise of the week. It's Russell Wilson. I mean, so he finally shows up.
To the party. Woo-hoo.
Finally shows up. Finally comes to the party. Sun out, no problem for Judy and Wilson. Judy had a career, I think it was a career day. 3 touchdowns, so many points. I mean, and Wilson had the second most points that he scored this season with 25.58 points. Not only did he do that, but the Broncos, they finally scored over 23 points this season, scoring 28. I mean, that is insane. Yeah. No, they still suck. They still suck. Wilson left the game early in the fourth quarter with a concussion. So you got to monitor that concussion and see what happens if he's available to play against the Cardinals. I'm expecting him to be playing, but I wouldn't also be surprised they benched him. Their season's over. So, I mean, why take another chance on someone that you're paying so much on? But keep an eye on that and whether or not Wilson will be able to start and play.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I'm not sure whether he'll be, he might get cleared, but is there any point of risking it at this stage? Jerry Jeudy was a funny one. I mean, he went and he smashed up against the ref, and then all of a sudden he got going and got 3 touchdowns, and he's definitely going to get a call from the league, and I say a hefty fine for doing that. But that seemed to get him going in the game. But the Broncos, I think, were they 27 to nothing down, and all of a sudden they pulled it back within a touchdown, and then it got away from them again. But they did well. They did well to fight back. But Russ had his. I know he put up the numbers for fantasy, but he still made some silly interceptions and stuff like that didn't help the cause. And then obviously going down to concussion, which he looked out of it initially.
Yeah.
Because the camera was zoomed in at his face, and he was not on the same planet as us for a few seconds. But definitely surprised. But it really shouldn't be. We should be, he shouldn't be in the surprise category. We should be talking about Russ getting 25 fantasy points, more weeks than not. So it's kind of, got to go next year, Russ, and see what happens. But yeah, for fantasy, and if you're into QB leagues or Superflex, you gotta monitor what's going on with Russ, especially like you said, Fernando, that their season's over and there's no worth taking the risk on.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you really look at it, Wilson threw that one interception. That one interception was the big key to the game because that one interception was a pick six. And you take that pick six away, they win the game by 1 point.
It's the small margins, you know what I mean? And that's kind of been the Broncos season, I suppose, as a whole right there in that game.
Yep, exactly. Surprise of the week, Russell Wilson, Jerick McKinnon. Let's time to go to our streamers of the week. And I'll mention my guy, and he's a tight end, and tight ends are so hard to predict. And sometimes you just hit a brick wall when you go for a tight end, but you got to go with Darren Waller, 66.9% owned. He's set to be activated from IR this week, which is something to monitor because if he is, he's having a very favorable matchup against these Patriots. But you see the Patriots, don't they have a really good defense? Not to tight ends. Tight ends, they actually give out the 8th most points to tight ends on average each week. And Waller's potential, we've seen it happen. Derek Carr and him have the potential. I think Waller could have a good week.
Waller, I mean, he's had a bit of a, not the greatest season. Obviously, then the injury going on IR. So, but here's a guy that coming back, if he is fully healthy, he could definitely, help you win a fantasy championship. He has the talent. He has a connection with Carr. And like you said, Fernando, the favorable matchup for the tight end position. It's just whether he's going back 100% healthy and whether he's going to get the majority of snaps, because Foster Moreau isn't a bad player. He's going to probably take some snaps away, especially if Waller's not 100% healthy. But I think this is a great shout that probably a lot of people are forgetting about, unless you have him on your roster sitting there on the IR spot.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I was shocked actually to see Darren Waller was under 70% owned. I was like, wow, Waller's under 70% owned. That's insane. He has to be owned.
People obviously, just with the injury, just completely dropping him. And then I suppose the Raiders, I mean, they're getting it going now. It might be too late, but the Raiders for a long time were not a good team. So that's probably why he dropped under 70%. But if he's definitely coming back this week and he's going to be healthy and going to be out there, he's definitely someone to go get and start.
Yeah, and I do want to ask, going back to the injury with Deebo Samuel, if he is out for 4 to 8 weeks, if you don't have an IR spot in your redraft league, are you benching him and just keeping him in your bench, or are you dropping him?
I'll wait for clarification to see see if I can get more news. I'll keep him probably on the bench for at least a week and hope I move on in the playoffs. You will, unless you have some depth on your bench that you can just slot someone else in. You're probably going to go to the waivers anyways and get someone. But I definitely keep him and see if there's more news going to come out. But if it's definitely looking like the longer end of the timeline, I think if it's it's redraft, you just get rid of him.
Now, I think with this late in the season, can a player still go on IR and still return after 3 weeks? Correct, right?
I think so, yeah.
So if he goes on IR, I think you can drop him. If he doesn't go on IR, that means that the team is trying to get him back before 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
If he goes on IR, so what, will he even be back for week 18? Probably not. I mean,
but they're trying to have him back before the regular season.
They're trying to have, yeah. So, yeah, if he goes on IR, he's toast. You can just put him in your IR spot or get rid. But
yeah,
the whole point, I think the whole thing is that they're not going to, and they're just going to let him sit there and see what happens. Yeah, you had more news than I had on him. I hadn't got a whole lot. I heard the 4 to 6, but I think I think we'll probably know more info as the week goes on, or maybe into next week. So maybe I'd hold him for a week and see what happens. And if you get through to the next round, and then he's definitely not coming back, you just drop him then.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be willing to do that too, especially if you know that rumors has it later on this week that he might be coming back in 2 weeks. Then boom, you can keep him for another week.
Yeah.
So of course, Darren Waller, my streamer of the week. Who is your streamer of the week?
My streamer is Mike White, with a caveat that if he's healthy, but I think that guy's going to be out there. I know he got some rib issues, but he's playing Detroit this week. We just seen Kirk Cousins go off for over 400 yards and a couple of touchdowns. I think it's going to be another high-scoring game. The Lions are red hot right now. The Jets in good form. They put it up to the Bills for the majority of that game, and a big shout out to Mike White for coming back twice from 2 massive hits. I mean, especially the second one, it looked like he was done for the game. Flacco's going to be in there, but I think if he's good to go, he will be the starter this week, and I think he'll have a good game against this. This Lions defense has been getting better, but they're more in these shootout games than not. I mean, they did well to beat the Vikings, but I think Mike White can definitely put up big points to them, and the Jets defense is probably just a bit better to stop Goff. So I think Mike White could definitely get you 20 plus points.
Don't white this man out with ink, because he's facing the defense that has given up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the Detroit Lions. They have allowed 26.38 points on average each and every week to quarterbacks, which means if Mike White is healthy, he is a must start. I said it last 2 weeks that he needs to be owned in a lot of leagues, and I'm going to keep saying it. I got another waiver wire quarterback that I got to give you, but I think Mike White is really a good guy to pick up.
Yep, I mean, I agree. It's more just watching his injury designation for the week.
Exactly. So Darren Waller, Mike White are 2 streamers of the week, and if they are healthy, I mean, it's time. It's a go time for playoffs.
Definitely.
Of course, now it's time to go at our waiver wires for week 15. And of course, let's start with the waiver wire quarterbacks. And let's go with Keith. Keith, who is your first quarterback?
Mine is Daniel Jones this week facing the Washington Commanders. I mean, Jones didn't have anything big to write home about last week, only 169 yards and a touchdown. He did rush 4 times and got in for a touchdown, which, brought up his fantasy points to just over 19, which is not too bad. But the Commanders have given up over 17 points to the quarterback position this year. I mean, if that's not juicy, I don't know what it is. So, I mean, this looks like a tasty matchup for Daniel Jones. I think he can feed again, and he'll be over 17 points against the Commanders this week.
Oh, Daniel Jones. I don't know how much I like him. I want to like him. I want to like him, but I just can't. I can't plug him and just play him. In my opinion, he's made me so upset in recent years that I have just decided that I just cannot have any Daniel Jones shares.
Fernando crying over Daniel Jones. Oh, come on.
The man tripped. He had an open touchdown and he tripped and fell. Come on now.
I mean, it's kind of just like the Giants are kind of just doing what the Seahawks are doing. This season's kind of just going to, fizzle out, I think, a bit like what I said about Cleveland as well. Tough matchups. And yeah, Daniel Jones, he's putting the numbers up for fantasy though. He mightn't look good for, real life football, but he's doing okay for fantasy football. So I think this is a favorable matchup. I think he'll take advantage of that. Whether he'll win, I don't know. But I mean, I think there'll be a lot of points on the board because both defenses are not very good.
Last time he did face Washington, he scored 17.1 points. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do there for this week's matchup.
He's practically on the average. 17.2 was the average, so he's practically on the average. So he just needs to do it again more.
I think he can do it again. I think he can get around 17. But I will tell you my guy who's been looking very purdy, and you got to go get him. And that's Mr. Brock Purdy. He is only 7% owned. And you know what? He finished last week as a QB6, top 10 quarterback, almost even top 5 quarterback. And he finished the day with 21.7 points. He had 185 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He also rushed in for a touchdown with those 3 yards, torched the Buccaneers and Mr. Tom Brady. Now the injury concern is what I'm here for. He was limited on Monday with a rib injury, and I want to keep an eye out on that for today. Keep an eye out on that tomorrow, because they got a short week. They're going against Seattle Seahawks this week, and it's going to be on Thursday Night Football. And we're going to see Brock Purdy still play. I think Brock Purdy still will go on and play, but he's taking on Seattle. And here's the thing: Seattle has allowed 18.38 points to quarterbacks this season, and I expect similar numbers from Mr. Brock himself. And he may look even a little prettier if he starts.
I mean, it's a favorable matchup.
I love the jokes.
I know, you're just throwing Purdy everywhere. It's a favorable matchup. He's going to be out there. I just watched the injury designations, but it's like the Mike White situation. We expect these guys to be out there. Yes, it's a short week for Brock Purdy, but I think he'll be okay. He'll be out there. And yeah, he can take advantage of this, this young and youthful and, not up with the speed yet, Seattle secondary, and probably take advantage of it. So yeah, he's a good pick.
Now, before we go to our running backs, obviously Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones are two waiver wire quarterbacks, but why in the world is Trevor Lawrence a free agent and under 70% owned? He's right now 66.9% owned. The quarterback 8 on the season. Why in the world did he go back under 70% owned? Do you guys just not like Lawrence and his long hair?
Oh, I know. A lot of people don't like Lawrence. I'll tell you one thing, because Katie's had a nightmare in her fantasy league. She just lost Kyler Murray and she lost Jimmy G. So she has no choice, and she's going after Trevor Lawrence. But she hates Trevor Lawrence because of the whole, staying in college year. So he didn't go to the Bengals thing. So yeah, I think a lot of people probably don't like Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's half the battle. He has taken a step forward. He has a tough matchup this week against the Cowboys. But as we've seen last week, the Texans with their revolving door of quarterbacks. So every time I looked, it was Driscoll, then it was Mills, it was something else going on. Managed to put up, managed to be right in it in the fight till the end. So I think Trevor Lawrence coming off a big win against the Titans, I think he's going to take this game to the Cowboys. And like we seen last week, all he wanted to do was throw, and that's great for fantasy football. So yeah, guys, got to go out there and own this dude. He's under 70% owned. He could definitely be in Superflex 2 quarterback leagues. He could definitely help you win a championship.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to tell you some numbers right after this, but like if you have Trevor Lawrence in your dynasty league and like you're in win now mode and you're trying to go for another quarterback, or like you just didn't make it to playoffs and another team needs a quarterback who lost maybe Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jimmy Garoppolo, anything like that, trade Trevor Lawrence, because you know what? His playoff matchups are super hard. He goes to face Dallas. You look at the stats against quarterbacks. They are the third worst to quarterbacks, or third best, against quarterbacks. 13.77 points on average each week on the season. Then he goes on to face the Jets, who's the 7th best against quarterbacks with 14.69 points on average this season. And then championship week against Houston. Houston, ironically, is the worst, how do you want to put it? Best defense against quarterbacks. They've only allowed 13.23 points to quarterbacks this season, each and every week, which when he faced Houston earlier on the season, he only scored 10.34 points.
Yeah, because you kill Houston on the ground through the run game. That's how you kill them. But I think Trevor Lawrence is going to still put up some big numbers this, in the last few remaining weeks of the fantasy season. I think they have the momentum. I think he's looked the best he's ever had in the NFL. Obviously, really likes his Doug Peterson offense. So I still think he's a must add.
Yeah, I think he's still an add. I think you just can't deny that he's a quarterback 8. In my opinion, you still got to add him. And you know what? Even if he puts in like 17 points for a quarterback, that's still not a bad number for a quarterback.
No, I don't think I would have had him as in my top 10 at all at the start of the season. So,
I think I had him like 15.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely top 20, but I didn't have him top 10. So he's definitely taken a big step forward for me anyways.
Yeah. Of course, Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, our 2 waiver wire quarterbacks. Time to go to our waiver wire running backs. And I'll start with my guy, and it's Mr. J. King Dobbins. This man, he looked so good coming off an injury last week. He was my streamer last week, and I said that if he is available, you got to play him. And you know what? If you did, and you listened, you paid off because he had 120 rushing yards. He scored, and he got you 18 points. That's pretty good for a player that's just coming off an injury. And guess what? He goes for another favorable matchup against Cleveland. 61.5% owned, and that means he most likely could be available in your leagues. But with the Browns have allowed the third most fantasy points to running backs this season at 21.54 fantasy points. So Dobbins, if he's still available and you need a running back, he is a must pick up and he is a must play.
Yeah, I mean, he had some week last week, especially when you're throwing in that they had like Gus Edwards out there and Huntley was doing his whole run thing, like Lamar does before he got banged up. But J.K. Dobbins sitting on a lot of people's IRs, and I bet you most people didn't start him. They at least kept him on IR, kept him on his bench. You start him, good man. I mean, most people are just going to watch and wait and see what he does instead of taking the chance, in the first week back. Now there's your chance. You've got a workhorse running back, and I think he is going to be the workhorse. I don't know. I'm not too sure about Lamar this week. I know the talk is he's going to be out there, but there's still a chance that they go to the third string with Huntley being banged up too. And if so, I mean, they'll lean on the run game a lot, and J.K. Dobbins is going to have a big influence. I think he'll have an influence anyways, but he could have a bigger one if Lamar's not out there. So yeah, he's definitely a guy to go out there. I can't believe he's under 7%. People obviously
insane.
People probably just getting a pain in their ass when I'm getting injured all the time and stuff like that, or it's a needs must, and you just gotta make other pickups along the way, and you just got dropped in the meantime. But yeah, you definitely have to go get him.
Yes, of course, go get Mr. J. King Dobbins, but right in the same entire house, you got Mr. Knight, who's also there. Who's your guy?
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Knight is still he's a 58% rostered. I thought he'd go after last week. I thought he'd go through the roof. I mean, 17 attempts, lost 71 yards and a touchdown. He still had a couple of targets as well, which is showing he's getting some passing game work. 15.7 fantasy points. I mean, this guy came out of nowhere, really. You know what I mean? And he's had 3 great games. He's seen his carries go up 14, 15, 17 over the last 3. I mean, Salah obviously trusts this guy, plays the Lions this week. We already spoke about that. I think he's going to have another big game. He'll be able to run through that defense. Like I said, it's got better. The Lions defense has got better, but it's still not great. They still give up a lot of points. So Zonovan Knight, I think for me, is a must start this week. And I must get off the waivers. You got to get him up to 70%. You got to.
Yeah. No, if the production he's been getting, you have to start him, and you got to pick him up because Knight, I mentioned him as my waiver wire ad last week. I picked him up in all the leagues I could. And I mean, I plugged him and played him because running backs are just so hard to find, and they're producing. You got to go get them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'd definitely rather pick up Zonovan Knight over Pierre Strong if I was a Stevenson owner or something like that. I mean, I think you're guaranteed more production and with Zonovan Knight because he's going to be out there anyways. We don't know what's going to happen with Pierre Strong this week, so yeah, I'd definitely go get him.
J.K. Dobbins, Zonovan Knight are 2 waiver wire running backs. I do want to mention in one of our leagues, I think, no, I don't know if you're in the league, but it's a keeper league. And I had running backs, and I had Zeke, Boston Scott, Damian Harris, DJ Dallas, AJ Dillon, Tyler Algier. Most of them were either injured or out or on a bye week. So I had to start this guy who was 0% started, and that was Raheem Blackshear.
Oh, okay. Nice one.
Got me 11.9 fantasy points. Insane. Still lost, but it was just the fact that I still managed. I was like, you know what? I need a running back, and he's on my lineup. Let me just start him.
Sometimes that just works, taking a step in the dark and see what happens. He got that late touchdown against Seattle, and it worked. But yeah, I mean, I would be happy with that production.
Yeah, I mean, I still lost, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I took that as a win for starting.
Yeah, you're expecting to get 0, and then all of a sudden he gets you 11. So.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting much, but yeah, let's go to our waiver wire wide receivers. I just wanted to point that out. That was just crazy, but so let's chart the books on wide receivers in the waivers, and I'm gonna go with Mr. DJ, who likes to party. DJ Chark, averaging 9.8 points a game. He's only 22.9% owned, facing the Jets this week, but you look at the last 2 weeks for him, and he's had 14 plus fantasy points and over 90 plus receiving yards. Last week, he had 7 targets, caught 6 of them for 94 yards and a score, ended the day with 21.4 points. Goff, he's been looking really good. over 300 passing yards, 300 plus passing yards the last 2 games. And I think if Goff can continue to really show that he can be this reliable quarterback to his wide receivers, I think that DJ Chark could possibly be a league winner.
He's definitely someone who has the potential to be all right. And this week, going up against the Jets, you'd imagine Sauce Gardner is going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown, so leaving DJ Chark with, the number 2 there, corner. So that's something they can definitely take advantage of this week. Chark's always a guy I liked, even in his time with the Jags and stuff like that. He was always a talented guy. Just, got banged up in the first game of the season last year, and that was him out. And now we're kind of starting to see what he's about again with the Lions. So he's definitely worth an ad. He's got the potential to be a league winner. Whether it happens, I'm not too sure, but he's definitely a guy it's worth a flex play this week.
Yeah, no, I like him a lot. And I mean, if Jameson Williams also there, I'm willing to still take the chance on DJ Chark. I mean, he had the targets. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. As we say, all the time, you look at the targets. If the ball is coming his way, he'll eventually get more and more receptions as it goes if he's being targeted.
Yep, exactly. So DJ Chark, my waiver wire wide receiver, and Keith, who is your waiver wire wide receiver?
Mine is Zay Jones, still not gone up to 70%. And this guy, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 77 yards. And that crazy touchdown where it looked like it was going to be an interception and it kind of went through the defensive back's hands and into Zay Jones' hands. So that got him up to 21.7 fantasy points, and that was pretty good. But he's averaging over 5.5 receptions through 13 weeks, averaging about 12 and a half fantasy points per game. He is like a PPR must add, I think, at this stage of the season. Playing the Cowboys next, we know it's going to be a tough matchup. Probably going to be targeted by Dix, but I still think he can have a decent day. Do I think he'll go and get 20, 21 points again? No, but he could go for 15, 16, 17 points, and it's going to be a solid outing for him. So, like we were just talking about targets, 12 targets. He sees a lot of targets. If that happens again this week, he will have a good fantasy day.
The last 4 weeks, Zay Jones has had 43 targets.
It's crazy.
Insane. And two back-to-back weeks, 24 targets. I mean, last 2 weeks, 19 targets. I mean, this man is literally a PPR machine, like you mentioned. And the fact that he's not even owned over 70%, he's projected like 13.4 points this week. Why is he still in free agency?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. He's definitely one of Lawrence's favorite targets. And I think it's definitely going to continue right into the playoffs. And he's a guy who I think you must get and must start. I think he's easily a wide receiver too.
Wide receiver too, easily. Not in the wide receiver 1, but he's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah, very low end if you're stuck, but I think he's a very solid wide receiver too.
No, 100%. DJ Chark, Zay Jones, our 2 waiver wire wide receivers. Now it's time to finish off with our waiver wire tight ends. And Keith, who is your waiver wire tight end?
It's Evan Ingram. What a weekend and what
I said it last week.
You did. You called it last week. Well done. Fernando called it last week. Anyone that put him in, because I tell you what, who did I call last week? I called Dulcich, and in a couple of leagues he wasn't available, so I took Evan Ingram because they were our top 2 guys. And wow, boy, was I happy! But
you're welcome.
Whatever. You can take my credit. It's fine. You can take my credit. But 15 targets, 11 receptions, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What a game from Evan Ingram! 39.2 fantasy points. I mean, it's just crazy. Here could be. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get this amount of points next week or whatever, but here could be your random tight end league winner that nobody's seen coming and was in need of a big bounce back year. Again, Cowboys this week, tough matchup, but I still think he stays in your lineup. You probably had to play Evan Ingram because, Cole Kmet or some of these guys are on bias. I still think you stick with Evan Ingram. I still think he'll be peppered with targets. Even if he sees half the targets he's seen, last week, he will be solid for your team. He had a crazy week. Definitely helped a lot of teams, I would say, make the playoffs. But I think he is a must go and get. He's only 44% owned, but I think he's a must add this week and a must start.
Last week, he was a tight end 14 coming into the week. He is now the tight end 4.
It's crazy. It's crazy the tight end rankings. What one? I know that's one seriously big week, but it's crazy how it just shifts.
Yeah, that is now back-to-back weeks with double digits. Of course, he had 39.2 last week. And you still, I said the touchdowns, you take those touchdowns away, and he still finishes the day at 27.2 points. So it's still an insane number.
Exactly, especially for the position. Especially. It's crazy. I mean, if Jamar Chase gets this or Justin Jefferson, you're kind of saying, all right, he probably does that, 3 or 4 times a year. But like Evan Ingram, tight end for the Jags, this hasn't happened this season. Will it happen again? Who knows? But he's definitely, Trevor Lawrence, between him and Zay Jones, he just peppers these two guys.
Yeah, no, 100%. We have a question in the chat from Jeff Johnson. Need 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, and a flex out of Waddle, Judy, Hollywood Brown, Saquon, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad White, and George Pickens. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go with Waddle, Judy, and J.K. And Dobbins. Yeah, Saquon will be my flex.
Go Waddle, Judy, Saquon, and Dobbins in the flex. So we're just doing the same for something around. So yeah, I wouldn't play Hollywood, I wouldn't play White, and I wouldn't play Pickens. So basically, have whatever you want in your running back spot and have the other one in your flex, whatever you want to do. But it's Waddle, Judy, Saquon, and Dobbins. We're the same. We're the same 4. Yeah.
I 4. So I like Waddle. I like Judy, and especially if Sutton's out, Judy is a must start.
Yeah, I mean, we're expecting Wilson to play. Yeah, I know we said there's no need for them to there's no need to rush him back if he's still hurt, and he probably has to go through protocol anyways. But if he's healthy, I'd say they put him out there anyways. Just keep monitoring that one because that might change your mind on the Judy scenario. But yeah, I think we have the same 4.
Yeah, no, 100%. And of course, you're welcome. And Goff or Watson this week? Keith, I'll start with you. Who do you think? Who do you favor more?
Goff has been in better form. The Lions are on fire. A bit of a harder matchup against this New York defense, but I still think I would rather have Goff over Watson.
Yeah, I agree. I think Goff has looked really good. And I mentioned if Goff can still stay with the potential that he's been doing, the stuff he's been throwing 300 plus yards, I'd stick with Goff. I think Watson's season, like he scored 18 points last week, but I really think he's going to really blow up next season.
Yeah, I think Watson's got to learn the offense, get rid of the rust, and I think next year is for when we'll see a lot of Watson. I think it's Goff this week.
Yeah. So, of course, you mentioned Evan Ingram going for tight ends. Let's go to my tight end. And you may have never even heard of him, but Chigoziem Okonkwo. So, Okonkwo, this man.
There's a name. Say that again.
Chigoziem Okonkwo.
I didn't hear the first time.
I've been practicing this name to make sure it's right. He's looked good the last 2 weeks. Double digits last 2 weeks. He faced Philadelphia the week prior, and he scored 10.8. Last week, he caught all 6 of his targets for 45 yards and a score. The score is what's nervous because whether or not he can consistently get that is still the question. But with his 6 receptions and 45 yards, it gets him to double digits no matter what. He's going to face the Chargers, who are the 11th most fantasy points to tight ends this season. And I think he's in play this week. So I think you go out and you go get Mr. Chig Okonkwo.
He's definitely had a decent end to the fantasy season is Okonkwo. It's a crazy ass name. But
it really is.
I was against him last week, and I was like in a lot of leagues because a lot of people were favoring him. I was like, he was doing okay, and then he got the score, and I was like, oh, getting nervous then. But he's in the Titans offense. It's a run first. We always say this. It's not a whole lot of passing going, but Tannehill does like to throw to the tight end position, and especially in the red zone. So yeah, he's definitely a solid pickup this week if you're in need of a tight end.
Yeah, you want to say his name one more time?
No, you can do it.
Chigoziem Okonkwo and Evan Ingram are 2 waiver wire tight ends. Of course, it is fantasy playoffs, so I wish everyone the best of luck this week in your fantasy playoffs. But if you are still sports betting, make sure to use code SportsTimeHQ on Underdog Fantasy. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So why not gamble? But gamble responsibly. You can get free $100 if you put in $100, and you know what? You can get a bunch of money just by having $100 free there. So once again, go to Underdog Fantasy, use code SportsTimeHQ. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. That's going to do it this week for this week's episode. Of course, fantasy playoff week. I wish everyone the best of luck once again. I was joined by my great co-host, Keith. You can follow him all over social media at SwampDonkey_90, but make sure to follow him and his fiance on Instagram at HuddleUp_NFL. Again, it's going to do it here. I'm Fernando. I'm your host of Sports Time HQ. We'll see you all in 2 weeks, because next week I will be on a cruise. So
Lucky for some on the cruise.
Exactly. So I'll still be posting a TikTok, my waivers on social media. So be sure to follow Sports Time HQ on Instagram and Twitter, as well as TikTok. And you'll still be able to see your waiver wire pickups. Same thing with Keith. He'll be posting his.
We'll post them. So I just want to try. Anybody got any, late decisions coming down to the wire? Don't be afraid to hit us up. We can help you up to. I think it's a game Saturday this week as well. So keep an eye on that. So if you're in a Mad Dash start players and you need a start advice, hit us up. We'll definitely help you.
Colts, Vikings, Ravens, Browns, Dolphins, Bills, the 3 Saturday games. So again, be sure to hit us up. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer you. But that's going to do it here for today's episode. We'll see you all in a couple weeks.